Welcome to The Summit Club, a weekly podcast series where I uncover the stories, the strategies, the pain and the elation behind the most highly performant people on earth. The Summit Club is based on one simple idea, that in the climb of life, there is no summit. Join me as we interview the very best performers across all human endeavours, as we uncover the tools and templates that they use to maximise their potential in their efforts to get to the summit. A bit of a different one for you today, folks. Last week, I had the pleasure of being interviewed by an extremely talented young lady, Sienna Wilson. Sienna is one of the students of Global Academy, which is a technical college sponsored by Global Entertainment Group and the University of the Arts London. It's Europe's largest radio company and home to the likes of Heart, Capital, Radio X and LBC. Now, despite only being 16 years old, Sienna is well on her way to setting an incredible foundation for her young media career after recently launching her own podcast called Crossroads. The podcast is dedicated to learning about people's pathways, their careers, and considering my very varied career thus far, we had a fantastic time discussing some of the most key junctions in my life. If you're unfamiliar with my story, this is a great overview of how I've ended up where I am now. And if you're new here, it means an awful lot to get the podcast going if you can show it some love with either a thumbs up or a review on whichever platform you're listening to. I hope you enjoy this chat with Sienna.
Welcome to the podcast, Tom, and welcome to the studio. It's so lovely to have our first in the flesh guest here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's an incredible to be here. Like, you guys have an unbelievable facility here, and amazing to be here.
Yay. Tom, you are a YouTuber. You're a co-founder of a Web3 and NFT company called Unorthodox, a biomedical scientist, and you used to be a dentist. Yeah. I mean, there's quite a variety of roles, so we'll obviously elaborate on it later, but briefly, how did you make that transition from dentistry to Web3?
I would love to say this was a brief story. I'm going to keep it brief for you because...
Well, it's like a little teaser for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, a little bit of a teaser. The answer is that it took me a long time to become a dentist. It took me years. I did like 7 years of university education on top of sixth form. So like I'd invested like nearly 10 years into it. So when I was like, I don't want to be a dentist, I was like, don't make any stupid decisions. Let's think about this and maybe perhaps get some consultation from some people that you know, maybe speak to people that are outside of your situation and don't know me. So yeah, the long answer is that I didn't rush it. Mm-hmm. I thought about it very carefully because it was a huge decision. So yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah,
it's a little teaser for everybody. So we're going to go back to your sixth form kind of college school days. I know, feels like ages ago.
Shut up. How dare you? How dare you?
What did you dream of being when you were younger? What did you want to grow up to be?
I had many dreams. So as I think most people do, depending on the age, and for me it was, okay, at the age of 5, I was like, football. I'm going to be a footballer. I'm going to be a Premiership footballer for my favourite club, Ipswich Town. I wanted to be a footballer at the age of 5. I got to the age of probably 9 and or 8 and realised I wasn't good enough. Again, that just happens. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are lots of guys out there and girls who can relate to that. Then I discovered golf when I was 12, so I wanted to be a golfer. Then I reached the age of 15, realised again, wasn't good enough. And there's a theme here, there's a theme. And then it was like, okay, real talk, what the hell am I going to do? And this was after the dreams just sadly vaporized, not because I didn't believe I could do it, because I did believe I could be like the best golfer in the world, but it just became very clear to me I wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. And when everyone is a lot better than you, it becomes clear. So 15 years old, I'm like, great, what do I want to do? My parents are in the medical profession. They have been. So my dad's a doctor, my mum is a radiographer, and so I grew up in a medical family where that was my only frame of reference for what work could potentially be. Yeah. Didn't know about business, didn't know about anything outside of the medical field. So I was like, I convinced myself and was like, I want to be a surgeon. I would love to be a surgeon like my dad. And the thinking at the time was my dad has provided me with like a really, really decent life. He worked really hard to get where he got. He was the first person in his family that went to university. And he and my mum both worked themselves up from essentially, not much. And they delivered a life that myself and my siblings were extremely privileged and fortunate enough to have. So I was, at the time, was like, at the very least, I'd like to pay that forward to my family and do the same. This was at a time back in like 2003-4 when YouTube didn't exist, Instagram didn't exist, Facebook
Whole
didn't
different
exist.
world.
A very, 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 very different world. And I had no access to inspirational people, motivational people, other career paths. I had none of what is available now. And so I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor. And my dad was like, hold on a second. Occasionally I go on trips with my doctor friends, and there's usually a couple of dentists there. The dentists, they have a better lifestyle and they make more money.
Yeah.
Think about being a dentist. And so I was like, all right, yeah, sure. 15 years old. And I went and did some work experience with my dentist and was like, yeah, why not? In my head, because I wanted to be a surgeon, dentistry was the fastest route for me to be able to do surgery. Like, you know, that was the end goal. Whereas as a doctor, it can take a decade or more to become a surgeon. So I know, think about that. So yeah, just made that decision then. Then it was like, oh, I need to get good GCSEs. Completely failed that. I got absolutely appalling GCSEs. That was a learning for me. That was a really big lesson in my life where I was like, oh, I thought I was better than what the output was, which was really bad grades. Yeah, so I thought to myself, this is not good. You want to be a doctor, but you have nowhere near the grades that would be able to get you into university. So I was like, okay, what are the options here? I could have a swing at it and try my best to do really good at my A-levels, really good at my AS, just work as hard as I can, and then perhaps I might be able to just sneak in the door at one of the med schools.
Could you still qualify to do those A-levels though? Because at least at the school that I was at, we had to have a certain grade in it at GCSE to pursue it at A-level.
The grades that I got at GCSE so the A-levels I did was science and maths. So I did chemistry, physics, biology and maths for AS. And so my grades in GCSE were just enough, just about good enough.
So you're sure you're not exaggerating when you say, oh, I did awful, I did really bad?
No, I'll tell exactly what I got. So I got 4 A's, all in science and I think geography or something. So 4 A's, 5 B's and 1 C. That was what I got at GCSE, and I was surrounded by all of my friends who were getting all A stars and all A's. Yeah. And I remember walking to get my results on the GCSE results day. We were walking with my friends, and this was before like you get emails. You'd have to go to school, pick up them in an envelope.
No.
Yeah, I know, crazy, right? So we'd all go to school. We'd be like so nervous. This is in the middle of summer, and I remember when we were walking, I was just like in my head, I was, 15 or 14 at the time, 15. And thinking to myself, in my head, I was like, okay, maths, what do I reckon I'm going to get there? And I'm like, well, I got like a C in my mocks. And then I started going through all of them in my head before I arrived. And it quickly dawned on me, like I had this feeling where just this immediate sudden sinking feeling, because I hadn't even thought about this at all. I was like, I'm going to get crap grades. And of course, I opened that envelope. They were crap. At least crap for what I was intending to do, which is you need all A stars and all A's to have a chance to get into medicine. So that was a big learning for me, and that was the kick up the arse that I needed. And I entered AS, and I was like, I'm going to dominate now. And I literally said that to myself. No, I know it's a weird thing, but I was like, I'm going to push myself to my absolute limits. Yeah. And so I entered that first year of sixth form, and I stopped messing around. So I was very much at school like at GCSE level a messer. I was one of the naughty kids. So you put 2 and 2 together, right? Yeah. And then I just completely got rid of that for A levels. So I was like, I'm gonna prove to myself that I can do this. So I just stopped messing around. Started staying late. Started just focusing. And then I managed to get. This was This is before A stars, sadly.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. I'm giving away my age. But yeah, just for context, I'm currently 34 years old, because that gives it a little bit of context. So I did my GCSEs in 2005. A levels, there was no A stars.
I wasn't even born then.
I was trying in my head. I was like, I know Sienna wasn't even born then. Yeah, I know.
2006.
2006. So they there's a coincidence that they added A stars when you were born, right? That was surely.
What? Because I just made A stars.
Well, the stars aligned, surely.
The stars aligned.
There you go.
That was quite good.
Take that one
I
away.
quite like that one.
There you go. So anyway, yeah. So I was like, I needed. This was before A stars, and I needed like 3 A's to get look in to get an interview for med school. I managed to get 2 A's and a B. I was predicted 3 A's, and annoyingly, the A that I didn't get was in biology, which is the one that I was predicted to get the best result in, and I just flopped it because I could never write essays. I could never write like long answer questions or essays. Always struggled with that. I was way better at equations, multiple choice, that kind of stuff, and biology sadly was that. So I just missed the mark. I got a couple of interviews at a few med schools, but not enough I didn't get a place. So I ended up doing biomedical sciences, which was my first degree. So spoiler alert, I did 2 degrees.
I had that coming up. I was going to reveal that. Honestly, no, it's okay. So you obviously knew from quite an early age that was what you wanted to go into, 15, so you could plan your A-levels around that. Do you think you had like added pressure from your parents to go into at least some form of like somewhere in the medical field?
I would definitely say no pressure, because I look at my siblings and what they do, and no, my parents, I've been very, very lucky. My parents never put pressure on me apart from when they wanted me to play piano at the age of like 11, and I was
I think we all had that phase.
Yeah, I know. So I learned heavily. I'm not going to push my kids into the play an instrument that you haven't chosen, that kind of stuff. So no, not at all. Honestly, I just think back to it at the time, pre-internet, essentially pre all the information that you have access to, the social media that you have access to. I had no other references. I had nothing. So all my reference was my parents have this lifestyle, they have this job, and to me I was like, well, if it was right for my dad, and I'm my dad's half genetics, and I love science, and I'm good at it, I'm capable. I love looking after people. I'm very empathetic. It definitely fit with what it was a simple equation. It was a very simple equation at the time. So definitely no like pushing from the parents.
That's good.
Yeah.
Happy to hear. So you also attended a private school for 6 years. What was your experience like there? And do you feel as though private state education is relevant in today's society?
It's 100% relevant. Yeah. So I'll be very transparent about this. All of my drive to what I do is based around the privilege that I feel that my parents put me through a private education when they probably weren't really wealthy enough to do that, and they had to make massive sacrifices for my education. And I'm extremely fortunate to have had that. But everything that I've kind of do and I'm doing, and all the decisions I've made, is because I want to not pay back the privilege, but in what it feels like is I know that I was very privileged, and I want to pay back what the sacrifices that my parents made, and also pay it forward to help as many people as I can in my entire life. And when I think back to the experience I had, super fortunate. I think that obviously it's been 15 years now since I've been at school, so things might have changed. But yeah, absolutely. Like, I had an amazing experience at school. That's all I can say. And I know a lot of people go to private schools and have a horrific experience. And I know a lot of people go to a state-funded school and have an amazing experience, and the opposite.
Yeah.
So I think I just got lucky. I was pretty social, and again, like most schools, if you're social and you're capable at sports, I personally believe those two things can buffer a lot of the pain that goes through teenage life. At least that's my experience from what I saw, the kids and children that perhaps didn't display like sporting acumen, they were easy targets for whether it's bullying or anything like that. I don't think. I mean, I'd flip the question to you. What do you think? Is that something that you have you picked up on that at all?
Episode.
What's that?
It's not my podcast episode.
No, but genuinely a question.
I think it's a lot less important as it was 10 or so years ago, 20 years ago in the past. The difference, I think. I don't know. I think it's a good question. I don't think I have enough experience actually out in the career world to really offer an opinion.
Have you witnessed bullying like in the last 5 years?
Oh, is that what you're asking about? You're asking about the main question.
Yeah,
110%.
Yeah.
But I think that's prevalent at both state and private schools.
Absolutely. But if you think about the reason why, are there any things that you're like the common factors? Because I personally would be surprised if anything's changed. Well, not sport, but your social ability. But what I found at any school or any level was if you demonstrated sporting ability in anything, in a team sport especially, that tended to buffer the
I think that was a lot more of a thing for boys, I think. Or at least it is now. I think that's still more of a thing for boys. I can understand that, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, it's just like boys if you're not on the sport team and girls if you don't, I don't know.
Yeah,
what's makeup.
No, but seriously, what's the girls? Because I agree with you. I'm sure there's a correlation there.
I don't know. I feel like all girls are kind of like, I don't know. This might take this off the record, but I don't know because it's like, I think all girls kind of experience some form of bullying, but half the time it's from your mates. Like it's like a bitchy thing. Like at least in the school that I was at, there was never any like the three mean girls and the one target, whatever, like some kind of film. I did a really good. That sounded like The Simpsons.
That did. Yeah, you did.
That was really good. But it was mostly like friendships and stuff. I think was the problem, or if you like broke the mold. Like I was very opinionated, and the boys didn't like that. So in turn, the girls didn't like that because they wanted to impress the boys. Yeah. So they'd be like, "Yeah, get back in the kitchen, Sienna," and stuff. I was like, "What?" They
actually said that?
Yeah, on a real. From my personal experience, I'm not going to be like, I was bullied, because I wasn't really. Like, I just had a bit of a tough time with my friends in my school, but or who I thought were my friends.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly, and I can relate to that. Like, I never had, I mean, I saw bullying. I had bullying probably when last time I was about 13, and then after that, it's just, it could be construed as banter, but like, I definitely didn't.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it's like, a lot of bullying's banter.
Yeah.
Like in disguise as banter.
Yes.
And a lot of people say you can't take a joke.
Yes.
It's just a bit of the bants, but it's not really.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
That was a long answer to your question about state and private school education, but my belief is that I come from a kind of more of a freedom of choice capitalist type of perspective in the world that I've definitely developed. Like I've grown more that in my 20s, in that it's like your choice to do anything, and everyone should have options. Same thing with like the current discussion around private and public healthcare that's been happening in politics. So I'm a fan of freedom of choice. That's it.
I just twist it up a bit. Had you not gone into dentistry or known you wanted to go into dentistry, do you still think you would have gone to university because that was the obvious path, or do you think not, because you did mention about your dad being the first in his family to do it?
Yeah, I definitely at the time I 100% would have gone into some sort of education. It was not wasn't even a consideration for a split second. It was I finish A levels and I go to university, and it was okay. Well, I'm going to do biomedical sciences now, but if it perhaps I can't even envision or envisage a alternative route that I took. It's like, it was just very clear, you're going medicine or something related to medicine. And that meant you go to uni.
Yeah. Okay, moving forward into university, you attended the University of Dundee, where you studied a Bachelor of Science and Biomedical Sciences, as well as the University of Exeter, where you studied BDS and Dentistry. So you were in further education from 2006 to 2013. That's a long time. That's 7 years. How was your overall experience at university?
Yeah, it's actually kind of wild to think that, and kind of wild to think that I do absolutely I have no relation to what I studied in those 7 years. It takes up my life now. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, I split it up into two things. So I had my first degree, which was biomedical sciences in Dundee, and that was very much like a, you know, bright-eyed. I have no idea what I'm doing. You living it like everyone has at university,
Yeah.
and that was very much, what do I need to do to survive? And had a good time. Weirdly, I went to Scotland because I kind of wanted to play golf. I was part of the option was go to London. The option was go to London or go to Scotland. And because golf is one of my passions, I wanted to go play for the university golf team, and they have great golf courses. So I chose that.
That's so strange. That was your
yeah, kind of. But then, yeah, sometimes, you know, perhaps that's a common theme. I don't make smart decisions. But I did also go to Dundee because they have a great anatomy department, for which I knew that was that to me was a big kind of area that I wanted to really get to learn, which is human anatomy. So there was some thinking there.
Yeah. We've had guests open up in previous episodes about their mental health at university. Did you struggle, and were you surprised by how hard it was, considering the negatives of university aren't massively talked about?
I should probably preface this and this is something I think about a lot, actually, when it comes to psychological and mental health. I know people that have very deep trauma, and they have psychological challenges that can prevent them from doing things daily. So I'm very, very aware, and I've been around mental health, kind of psychological trauma, and I've seen it all. I have experienced a lot of things in my life where I probably could say they could be considered traumatic. For whatever reason, I don't suffer from any sort of whether it's psychological or mental health conditions, whether that's depression. I occasionally have anxiety around a couple of things, and they're very I know how to manage those things, but compared to some people that have trauma, I'm been very, very, very fortunate. So my answer to your question about university is that no. The answer is no. I had no trauma. I had no issues. I had stress around exams, around probably too many hangovers, societal, some pressures around maybe some sports, that kind of stuff. But I was very, very, very lucky. It's something that I really want to help move forward, the conversations around mental health. And I actually think, because I have this perspective of someone that has seen people in trauma but don't experience trauma myself, I have huge amount of empathy, because I just feel so fortunate that I can live a day to day where I don't have the challenges that just mean getting out of bed is like a challenge. I've seen crippling anxiety and depression in other people, and I would never wish it on anyone. And so, yeah, I'm a big advocate of help show people what things they can do in their life. And this is a little bit around what I do now, but helping people uncover tools and tactics and tricks and tips that can help them defend themselves from psychological stresses and stuff. So I want to help people, and so I do a little bit of that.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you for offering like a different kind of perspective. Did you ever consider taking a gap year, or did you want to get straight into it since you knew dentistry would be a long process at uni?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I didn't take a gap year, and I went straight into university. I did 7 years of university back to back, and exams after exams after exams. When I decided I didn't want to, I then worked as a dentist for a year and a half. I then realised I didn't want to do that. So then I again, without stopping, was like, okay, I need to move into a different career. Spent a couple of years doing another career. I got to the age of, it must have been 27, 28, and I was so beyond burnt out that I took not only one gap year, I took 2 gap years. So
Hey.
I got there in the end.
Yeah.
But coincidentally, because I took my gap years when I was in my late 20s, a couple of things happened. I had all of the perspective of my like 20s going into a gap year. So I had all of the learnings and the lessons that I'd had and the perspective of how the world works. I also had this kind of weird opportunity to then have a gap year at the end of my 20s. Essentially, I lived my life like I was 19, 20 again, 21. And
Blast from the past.
it was a blast from the past, but living like a 19, 20, 21-year-old with all of the perspectives of someone that's lived their entire 20s is something that I know most people will never get to experience. But I can absolutely say those were the 2 best years of my life, because I knew how fortunate I was to get that chance to do that at the age that I was at, when all of my friends and were maybe trying to buy their first house, getting married eventually, like within their early 30s. I suddenly was like, I'm just going to live 2 years like I'm 19 again. And I had the best 2 years and totally had the chance to reset my life and start again when I was 30. And then I mean, this is a bit weird, but I feel like I'm in my 30s and I'm starting again in my 20s. I'm like now getting into my mid 20s again. So I feel very fortunate. I feel like I've had 2 rounds at living my 20s.
Would you recommend that to someone who is feeling burnt out in their career, isn't sure if they want to continue? Do you think they should take that time away like you did?
There is not a single person that has not taken an extended amount of time away from what they've done, no matter what time or whenever they're at in their life, who would reflect back and say that was a bad decision. Everyone always says that was the best decision that they've made. And I know people that have taken gap years in their 60s, 50s, 60s. Yeah, I know. It sounds stupid, right?
Do we even still call it a gap year then, or is it just pre-retirement?
Well, it's, they call it different things. They call it like sabbaticals when you've got a job, taking like a few months off. But we live in a world now where back 15 years ago, we couldn't work remotely. So we didn't have Zoom. We didn't have all of the technology that allowed us to work all around the world. We didn't have internet connections all in these tropical places, but now we do. So back then it was not really a thought, but now for people, like, you absolutely can go and work anywhere as long as you don't have you could even do manual jobs. So I would just say that if it doesn't matter when you are in your life, but sometimes for a lot of people, I do think getting it done earlier in your 20s is a good idea. I personally do think going straight from school or college to university, especially these days with university education costing so much, I personally would not recommend anyone going straight into university. That's my perspective. I think that I really think that people owe it to themselves as a young person to go and experience the world. Traveling is an amazing way to do that. You'll have a much clearer idea after you've met a load of cool people, after you've seen a load of things, you've done a bunch of jobs. You'll start to understand, okay, well, actually, for me, maybe I didn't want to do medicine. I was like, actually, I quite like business, which is what it turns out I love.
Lovely. Back to sort of your 7 years at university, looking back on it now, do you feel as though you wasted that time, or do you feel as though it's kind of become a part of you, part of the process, made you who you are today? I think.
Yeah, it's a great question.
I phrased that really weirdly though at the end, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I can't really look back at it and say that was a useful time in my life, because all of the information that I soaked up and all the studying that I did, I don't utilize any of that information now. That's 7 years where it is literally pointless.
Yeah.
And I could craft a story in my head which is like, no, I don't, it was just part of your story. You learned loads. You learned how to. It was like I learned one thing. So in dentistry, in the 4 years that I did, I took my learnings from, again, I kind of had a bit of a little failure when I studied biomedical sciences. I got a number of offers to go to dental school, and then I kind of got a little bit screwed over by my professors in my final year, and I didn't get the grade I needed in my university. But I luckily just had a backup option for dental school, which I managed to get into. So I kind of, again, I had a bit of pain from that. So when I started at dental school, I was like, I want to graduate top of my class. In 4 years' time, I want to graduate in the top. And I was with a bunch of people that had graduated, done degrees in Oxford, Cambridge, super, super smart people. And for 4 years, I pushed myself to my limit and really learned how to work with a small team, a couple of like a study group. And I taught myself how hard I can work really hard, and I can also do hard things. And I can actually, if I set myself a goal, which was to get top of my class by the end of 4 years, I achieved that. And that I now carry that belief with me in everything I do, that if I set myself a goal, I know that I can achieve it if I work very smart and hard at things. So I don't look back at it as kind of a waste. I think I've learnt the most valuable lesson, which is that I am my own limit to my achievements. And if you can push yourself and keep on testing your limits, you can't ever look back on something and look at it as a regret.
Yeah. Why did you want to be the best, the top so bad?
So honestly, I can't explain this other than I've always just wanted to be the best.
You have no other explanation.
No other explanation, yeah. Because I guess it's a competitive thing. I'm philosophical about things. I personally, my belief is that we are so beyond fortunate enough to be on this planet. And I found out the other day, like, the probability of you being alive is like 1 × 10 to the power of like 2.6 million. It's essentially impossible that I'm here, you're here. It's an impossible probability. So I don't want to waste that. I don't want to waste that fortune. You know, I've been given the privilege of my upbringing, the privilege of being, I don't have any disabilities or anything, that I've so fortunate, and it would be an absolute travesty if I didn't push myself to find my utter limit. And so it's not necessarily I want to be the best, I want to be my best. And I want to push myself, and maybe I use the thing as being the best just to be able to give myself a bit of a frame of reference, so I can be like, that's what the best person is doing, let's aim for that. So that's all that is, really.
Fair enough. Obviously later on in your career you decided dentistry wasn't for you. Did you ever have those kind of doubts while you were studying at a university?
I had the lightning bulb moment, in my first year of dentistry.
First year?
Yeah, so I knew at the end of my first year, I was like, this probably won't be the thing that I do for the rest of my life. If just wind back to clock to when that happened, it would have been 2010, 2011, and 2010, and I just read a book in my summer holidays called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. That book had come out in 2007, and it, funnily enough, is like the book that a lot of the most prominent entrepreneurs that are around now, they refer to that book as also being the lightning bulb moment for a change in direction that they took towards kind of entrepreneurship. Just a quick kind of premise for the book is that it was explaining how instead of working a normal job, you can use all of the tools that the internet has provided, the services, the platforms that were starting to get built back in 2007. You can use that to create your own mini business. You can be an expert, you can write blog posts, you can do what is super common now. It was the first ever book that spoke about that stuff and kind of predicted the future. I read that in 2010, and I was like, the line that I read, or the kind of the theme that really sat with me, was that book, it really wasn't about the tactics and the tools to do all of it. It was the philosophy that time is your only actual asset that you have in life. And all of these tools allow you to control time and quicken stuff up, do things quicker. And that to me was like that was the lightning like lightning strike moment, and I was like, oh, I've got another 3 years now.
I was going to say you still continue to pursue it. Why? Just because you got that far, so you were like, I can't go back now.
Exactly. And back then, 2010, again, reminder, no Instagram, no YouTube. There was no evidence that theory of you can live like this remote working lifestyle. There was very little evidence of that. So to me, it was like, oh, this sounds amazing, but I'll continue on the path that I'm doing, get it done, and then let's see what happens. And that happened. I graduated, and I was like, as soon as I graduated, I was like, okay, well, how am I going to escape this? And so that's when I was like, I'm going to design some surgical instruments and design them and then sell them. And then that will be my income that allows me to get out of being a practicing dentist.
Oh, wow. And, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So to be fair, I actually don't speak about that much. But yeah, the year after, I went through the whole process of having these surgical instruments designed in Pakistan, where most surgical instruments get made, having them sampled, and I got samples made, and I just took me about 6 months or so, and then it got to the point where the next step was I needed to place an order, and the order would have been 1,000 units, probably like 10,000. I would have paid £10,000 to buy them.
Yikes.
Exactly. And so I was like, okay, right, I've been through all of this. I've learned how to design stuff. I've learned how to build websites. I've learned how to like create a marketing plan. But do I really want to be in dentistry, in the medical field still? And the answer was no. The answer was I just didn't want to still be in there. So I canned it. And that's like after you put in so much effort and you're like, you've got this, I had these beautiful like physical products which I had put so much time and effort into, and I had to be happy with just killing that. But if I didn't, I wouldn't be here now. So, yeah.
Definitely. So coming out of university, you went straight into becoming an associate cosmetic dentist, and you were there for a year?
Yeah, yes? I was there for a year. So when you graduate as a dentist, for any of you guys who are looking to do it, it might be a little bit different now. It's about 7 years since I was doing it, but you have a training year that everyone in the UK does to be able to become a NHS dentist. Mm-hmm. And everyone does the same thing. You go get put in different locations in the country, and you work for a year at a practice, and you get mentored by the practice owner. You do you meet occasionally. You have a day off where you do a study day every week. So it's kind of like the next extension of university. I did that, and then I was like, I was still in a bit of a kind of okay, what do I want to do? And I recognized that I really wanted to do, in dentistry, I had a massive passion for a very specific part of cosmetic dentistry. And it was all about kind of helping people get their mouths back to like health without destroying their mouth. Yeah. To kind of go not to go into too much detail, but dentistry can be very destructive, like the way it's done. And I was like, this is stupid. Like, you clearly the best thing is, the best interest of the patient is doing it as minimum as necessary. So I always went into things being like, I want to protect patients, and I don't want them to have to pay me loads of money to do unnecessary work. The sad truth, I saw so many dentists that overtreated and did stuff that they didn't need to do because they could send out a bill at the end of it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a mic drop, that.
Yeah.
It's going to make a good Instagram reel.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends that still do dentistry, and I love them. They're amazing people. For me, it became very clear that there is a point where you just need to decide to your ethics. The line at where your ethics gets tested.
Yeah. And
when you have bills to pay, when you have mortgages, when you have all of the stuff that comes at you as you get into your life in your 20s and 30s, that line becomes blurry. And I saw that very, very, very clearly. And I was like, I never want to question my ethics when it comes into relation to another human. Like, so that to me was okay, you're done now.
Yeah. Jeez. So knowing you'd kind of had your doubts about dentistry when you were doing it for your first year at Exeter, yes, at what point when you went into the practice and you started and you came out of university and you'd like reached that point that you've been working for, at what point were you like, finally I'm going to take this leap of faith and I'm going to pursue something else?
I had it was interesting because I was working in my second year of training after graduating dentistry, and I was in the second year of training. You do hospital placements instead of working in a practice. You do, like, if you want to specialize in stuff in dentistry, you do a year where you go work in hospitals, do oral surgery, you do different types of specialisms. And I'd been placed in Wales, and I was sat in the Brecon Beacons in a place called Merthyr Tydfil, which is the forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's one of the most it's one of the poorest areas in the UK, and it's a tough place to live. The weather is crap, it's always raining, and I was in a hospital in my own, and I was in my surgery, white walls, no windows, bright lights, and I just had this, like, again, just another moment where I was like, is this really it? Like, this is me for what, 30 years, 40 years? The one big thing, and this is something I would perhaps suggest considering for people that want to go in, especially the dentistry route. Had never thought about this. No one had ever talked to me about this. No one ever explained this. But when you're a dentist, you want to stay in one location, and you make your career of treating the same patients over and over again for as long as you can, for ideally a few decades. Mm-hmm. You don't want to move around because then you start from scratch. So I didn't know that. I then became aware of that and started questioning things, because I was like, well, I love traveling. I love trying different cultures, meeting people and living in different places. And it just became so clear. I was like, this lifestyle just is not it is not aligned to me as a human. Mm-hmm. This makes no sense. Sitting in it felt like a prison cell. It really did, felt like, instead of it being padded walls, it felt like solid walls, but it was the same thing. It was the same kind of, it felt like a prison.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Wow. This is like the make or break question. This is my favorite one. How hard was it to leave a high paying job to pursue happiness?
This is a good question, because I feel like I have a unique perspective on this. So I'll break a couple of myths. So I left dentistry because one of the reasons, apart from me feeling like it wasn't aligned to what I wanted to do, I actually felt like the lifestyle that I wanted and I like, which back in the 80s and 90s, medical practitioners, dentists got paid a ton more than they do now. They get paid. They don't get paid as much as they did in the 90s.
Really?
Yeah. So especially in the UK with the NHS contract that exists now compared to then, mm-hmm. dentists made absolute bank in the 90s. And sure, I could have stayed as a dentist. I could have made loads of money. I personally, when I started learning about business and entrepreneurship, it became clear to me that if I really dedicated myself to this, I'll make infinitely more money doing entrepreneurship than I would as a dentist. So that was, to me, that was actually a large part of it. I actually felt like I could, in the long run, after I learned what business is about, got experience, I still believe, I know, to be honest, I just know that that's the case. That's the truth. So yeah, to me, it was a no-brainer. I was like, better lifestyle, more money. Yeah, it was an obvious decision for me.
How did the people around you take it? And really yourself as well, when you said that you weren't going to do dentistry anymore? Because I would have been like, what? After all those years?
What do you think my parents felt like?
Yeah.
7 years, all of the stress and turmoil, and I'd love to say I can remember the day I told them, but
you've blacked it out.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a traumatic event, right? Like, you're coming in, you're telling your parents, who their only, again, coming back to the reason why I did it, their only frame of reference was that as a lifestyle, and they have an amazing lifestyle, and I told them, I was just like, I just don't think this is for me. And yeah, it took, I probably still now, and this is, I've now been out of that for 7 years. I've been in the tech industry.
Gosh, you are old.
Yeah, I am old, yeah.
I'm kidding, I
know, it's mad. It took a long time, I think, for them. I think there's just the initial fear you have as a parent is that, oh my God, is my kid losing it?
Yeah.
Are they just losing the plot? Are they having a breakdown? Are they? And then it's like, okay, slow down. The recommendation of just take a break, and that was why I did not rush into it. I transitioned out of dentistry over the course of about 6 months. So I worked 3 days a week as a dentist. So I worked Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays as a dentist in the middle of the countryside somewhere. I used to stay in a hotel. And then I did 3 days as an intern at 2 very young tech startups in London for free. So I worked for free as an intern for 3 days. So I was working 6-day weeks, driving 15 hours a week, staying in hotels, just trying to make a transition. And I was just paid enough as a dentist for those 3 days a week that I could cover that. But what that did is, so that gave me this period where I didn't have to make this flip decision.
Yeah.
Done. It was, let's test this out. Let's do this smart. Tested it out, fell in love. And it was, after that, it was just a question of how quick could I get my first proper job. And I'll tell you, when people are looking at your CV and they're like, so you're a dentist, you've done 2 degrees, and you're saying that you want to work in this young tech startup to earn absolutely nothing, you're mad, right? Yeah. It was a conversation every single time I go in for an interview. Probably had like 30, 40, 50 interviews. They'd all say the same thing. They just wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't believe that. And that's why I had to do those internships, to demonstrate that I kind of was all in on this.
I don't know if I believe you. You know what my friend said earlier? She said it was a bit like the B movie.
Okay.
You're a bit like, have you seen the B movie?
Yeah.
You know,
I've seen it backwards, yeah.
You've seen it backwards?
Yeah, there's a YouTube thing where it goes backwards, yes. Ridiculous.
Have you seen the one where it speeds up every time they say like bee or honey or something?
Yes, yeah.
Because it's like you like broke the mold, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're going to go into dentistry like your family and stuff, like the bees and the making the honey, and then you wanted to be different.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if that was, I know your end goal wasn't to end up like the B movie, but she said it reminded her of it.
Yeah,
quite funny.
I think that's a very, very apt analogy. I think I never went into things having an intent of I want to be different.
Yeah,
but that's interesting. It is an interesting because I think some people do have that driver. For me, it was like, just what do you want to do that makes you happy?
Yeah.
I spoke about this, and I write a newsletter, and I spoke about this in my newsletter the other day. It's this concept called Ikigai. It's a Japanese concept. It's called Ikigai. It's spelled Ikagai, I think, something like that. But it's this concept of like, what is your purpose? What is your like reason for being in life? And the way it works is that it's this. It's like a Venn diagram. So you know the circles. You got the circles that overlap. So your purpose, your Ikigai, sits in the middle. And one of the questions is like, okay, well, what do you love? What things do you love doing? And for me, my things that I love doing are business, entrepreneurship, marketing, tech. I love all those things. The next question is, what can you get paid for? And it's like, okay, you start listing. It's like, well, people need businesses, people need entrepreneurs, people need to create stuff. And it's an idea of this purpose being drawn from like, okay, well, what are your skills? What do you love? What do you enjoy? And where can you get paid and have a career? And I think I think it's just kind of a shame that this doesn't get taught at schools. Like,
yeah, it sounds really.
Yeah, it's just a framework for you to be like, okay, well, all of these things in my life, how do I fit this into like, how do I make this my like one thing?
Yeah.
I personally look at you, and I think you're one of the very, very rare ones that has probably found their Ikigai very early.
Oh, my Ikigai, thank you. Sounds like a Pokemon or something.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a little cheeky Pokemon. Yeah, I see what your capabilities, your skill set. So that's one of the other pieces in the thing. Like, what are you good at? And I see this as being something that you're passionate about, something that you're good at, and something you can make money on, and something the world needs. So it's those four things. And I look at you as one of the very, very rare examples of someone who finds it.
Honoured.
finds it at that age, because I was 32, 33 when I found mine. 33.
Wow.
So yeah.
I'm going to set that as like homework for everyone in the podcast to do the little Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Do your ikigai.
Ikigai. And I genuinely, like, if that's the one outcome from this, I would really do that. Like, perhaps we can put a link to my newsletter article, which explains it quite briefly. And I give my example. So I literally say, this is mine. But yeah, I would highly recommend, especially if people are like, shit, I don't know what I want to do. At least give yourself 5 minutes to go through that little exercise and try and figure something out.
So before you went into Web3, you worked as a national account manager in a tech company. Had tech always been something you'd found fascinated and been interested in? I know it probably didn't come around since you're like a dinosaur so ancient. I don't know why I'm fixating on that so much. Oh, hello.
Hey guys.
Crikey. Has that always been something that you were interested in ever since it came around?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. And I think we really went through the tech boom happened in the late 2000s. So like 2009, when Facebook, it was really Facebook was the main starter of that. In 2006-07 was when the world kind of like woke up a little bit. Like all of a sudden they got more connected through Facebook.
Yeah.
MySpace existed through them, but we also didn't have a smartphone. Smartphones also changed the game. And so a couple of my jobs, I worked for businesses where I would help the likes of Selfridges, Harrods, like Chanel, Superdry, all of these businesses. I'd help their digital teams know how to make their websites and their mobile apps better for their users and customers. That I'd be a consultant, and that would be my job, would be to tell them how to do stuff, how to make their digital experiences better. That job didn't exist in 2007.
Yeah.
So like I couldn't. So it's all definitely like a process. But yeah, I love tech. I think interestingly enough, my first job was for a company called Tech Will Save Us. Yeah. That was the first. That was the actual name of the company, and I still look back. Yeah, I still look back on that as the most fun job I've ever had. Young. I wasn't young. I was like 26, but I felt like so fresh. I was so kind of new and didn't know anything, and I was really learning the very nuts and bolts of business at that point. And yeah, I had a job where I would have to go to, I'd have meetings with like the John Lewis team, Urban Outfitters, Topshop. I worked with all of these businesses, and I was like, this is so sick. And yeah, that was a moment where I was like, this is right. This is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, starstruck. After you sort of made that change, you made that transition, was there ever a point, because it must have been like really psychologically challenging for you. I mean, at least you had a smoother, more gradual transition with what you were saying earlier. But was there ever a moment when you kind of regretted it and you thought, oh, I've mucked it up, or I should have stayed in dentistry even though I didn't enjoy it? Or was it like the minute you got in there, you were like, no, this is right for me. This is what I want to do.
It was the latter. Yeah, it was very much like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is the arena that I should be playing in. Like it was, and it was for years. And I've maybe only recently stopped getting this question. When people find out that I was a dentist, or was, the first question is the two questions I get asked is, do you miss it? Do you regret it? And the answer always is absolutely not. Like, it was the best decision I ever made, was to move away from it. The second thing is more of actually a statement more than a question. It's like, oh, well, at least you've got it to fall back on. At least you've got it to fall back on. And I heard that a lot, especially in the first like few years after I moved, when I was still learning, and it was fresh. People were like, my closest friends assumed I was going to go back to dentistry.
Oh, really? Did they not have any belief in you?
Absolutely no. They were like, I know this is mad. I reckon there's a couple of people that probably, I mean, maybe now it's a little bit different, but a couple of years ago, yeah, like even after being away for 5 years, probably if you ask my friends, they were like, yeah, he would be back. And
can you do that?
It would,
I guess since you have the qualifications.
Technically, I can. I would have to probably take some exams. I'd have to do stuff.
Yeah.
But my friends probably were like, yeah, he'll be back. And part of the reason was because actually in those 2 years I was a dentist, I was extremely keen. I was very, very, very keen and very driven to be the best dentist I could be. So I kind of did a lot of stuff that not a lot of people did. I was posting on social media. I was networking with the biggest dentists in the world. I was posting videos on YouTube. I was, and that's actually ironically coming into the YouTube thing. We'll kind of talk about that. But yeah, just I was putting myself out there, and people probably thought he'll be back, but
then he never came back.
He came back. I'm never going to be coming back.
Ooh, you heard it here first. No, I'm kidding. They hear it in lots of places. So a lot of people listening probably have, I mean, some of them might, but will probably have zero idea what NFTs are and like Web3. Could you just give us a brief outline? I know it's quite a broad industry, so.
Yeah. So I'll try and do this and as simply as I can. So crypto as a concept is all about one thing. It's about proof. Crypto is about proof of ownership. So an example is those monkey pictures that you've seen online that cost thousands of dollars. The crypto is the underlying technology that allows anyone and everyone on earth to know that Sienna is the absolute owner of that monkey picture.
It's my monkey.
It's the monkey picture. and ironically your dad has one. So so it is crypto, and its very core is all about proof of ownership. That's all it is, and it's a tech. It's a piece of tech, and the way the tech works is that the tech cannot be fudged with in any way. It's unbreakable. So I will know forever that at one point in time, Sienna, you owned that monkey picture, and someone else bought it down the line. Maybe Justin Bieber owned that monkey picture at some point. The thing is, the monkey picture stuff and all the pictures, that's only the surface level of what that proof of ownership can be used for. So talk about some examples. Your parents own a house. A lot of people own houses. But all of that proof is currently on paperwork.
Yeah.
That paperwork can be forged. Anything paper can be forged, and the current tech systems that are used to store information like that can be messed with. They can be messed with and tampered with. Crypto cannot be. Crypto cannot be tampered with. That's the revolution, because if we think about the potential uses for proof of ownership, let's talk about them. Sienna, you're gonna go to a concert. I'll give you a ticket. This is your ticket. You own it. It has your name on it, and it's linked to some sort of proof of ownership, like your credit card or your driver's license or whatever, passport. That's your ticket.
Mm-hmm.
You can't sell it, Dan, can you?
No.
Because if you need that ticket to get into a concert, then that is like that's you. So potentially one use of it is preventing people from selling stuff on a secondary market.
Is this an actual real life example?
Yeah, it's a real life example.
Because I just saw my Boardmaster's ticket, but I can do that, can't I?
Yeah, well now you can, but in 5 years' time you will still be able to sell it, but it will be, the technology will be crypto based.
Yeah.
And it will mean that, okay, well when Sienna sells this ticket, instead of the ticket you just print out a piece of paper and you send it to someone, it'll be on a crypto blockchain, and it'll be like, okay, well for Sienna to sell this ticket first has to get burnt, and it's like digitally burnt is a phrase that gets used, and then a new one is made and given to the new owner of that, which proves that John Smith that you sold it to is now the new owner. So it's just a way of proof of ownership.
Yeah, got it.
I know that's probably dumb, but it is, all it is a tech that proves that you own something, and that it gives you the history of who has owned everything, and it can't be messed with in any way.
I see. What are some of your top highlights from your career in Web3? all the fun things you've done. I know
you know about all the fun things, like
the podcast listeners don't. I know there's some you might not be able to say, but
the reality is the fun things are always the in-person fun stuff. I hope, well, some people don't like partying. I love partying. And I think that is, there are a few things I love doing. One is working really hard, and the other is like letting my hair down and being with people, friends and family and colleagues, and having a fun time.
Letting the mustache run wild.
Letting the mustache run wild, which I did do, and I do at conferences and parties and events. And so that's it's getting people together. It's the human aspect of life which I've enjoyed most in like Web3. The conferences and networking stuff has been just always so fun.
Yeah. So since December 2021, you have founded 2 companies, the Summit Club and Unorthodox, as well as being an advisor for Evolve. You're obviously very much into business. So what are your top tips for starting a company, starting a business?
Yeah, I mean, kind of a big question, because the truth is that I'm 34 now, and I started a business. But you can be 16, 15, 14, 12 and start a business these days. Mm-hmm. And you have access to all the information you could ever need to start and build a business. So my advice is, I know, unfortunately, I see this a lot, and this is my perspective, in that I see a lot of super young 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds who either have maybe perhaps not had access to money when they were younger, maybe had a challenging childhood. I can see how their only way out is that they believe that they just need to make money. Mm-hmm. And they go on this militant pathway in this journey of, I'm going to become an entrepreneur at the age of 19, 20, 18. And they have access to all the information that you need to be able to be successful at the age of 19, 20 and make millions. You can. I do think that, so that wasn't an option for me when I was 19. Like, I didn't have access to any of that information. Yeah. And what I do look back on with absolutely no regrets is that the fact I used my 20s and had a lot of fun. And that's the one piece of advice I would give back to people, is for money, for status, for clout, don't forget about just having, you only, although I feel like I've had my 20s twice, live your life and have a ton of fun and experiences in your 20s. Like, you really do only get that one chance. You're better off trying lots of jobs out in your 20s, which is what I did, and then figuring out what it is best. Because I do know a lot of people that are a little bit older, and they look back, then they will look back and they will be regretful that they didn't go to the parties. They chose to stay in instead of and they chose that because of money.
Are you happier now and more content now that you've changed career paths on the whole?
Yeah.
Definitely. You can't even.
Yeah. So it's tough, because like, I look back and I feel very, very, very fortunate. Like, I really, really do. I have the easiest life. And I have a bit of a philosophy on life, and that's like, if anyone ever asks, like, what do you think the meaning of life is? At this point in time, I grew up in my 20s thinking it was, I want to help as many people as possible, and I still do. I think that you would be doing pretty well if you had a perspective on life which was, I'm just going to try and enjoy the passing of time, because that, at the end of the day, is the only thing that you have. Like, there is a guarantee in life, and that's, you're going to die. And I think about death a lot, and I think it really helps me to remember to enjoy myself, remember to focus on the things that I enjoy doing, and prioritizing spending time with my loved ones and friends and family, when perhaps in the past I've been a bit too I've said no to stuff because I've prioritized like work and things, and now I'm slowly, my parents are aging, and that's the one thing I would never want to miss out on, is spending time with like your family. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Your job now is also very involved with social media. How hard is it to live on social media? Do you feel as though it's impacted you?
Yeah, it's a really tough thing, because it's so conflicting, because in one instance I'm trying to utilize social media as a tool to grow my business and my businesses, and at the same time I'm trying to not get sucked into the absolute vortex of doom that is social media.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things I've done, and this is some tactical advice that I would recommend to anyone. I've actually done it. There's a YouTube video on my YouTube channel which you can go check out, which is it's called Why Phones Are Causing Your Anxiety. I made this a couple of years ago. I have all my notifications turned off, apart from on messages, WhatsApp, and Twitter, which is my main channel for social media that I'm kind of focused on. I have no notifications, and when I say no notifications, so no notifications come up on my phone, and also I've turned off the red badges, so the little red icons that say you've got like 2 messages or 3 messages or whatever, which a lot of people, I'm sure, if they open up their phone right now, there's a lot of red.
Should we have a look? My phone keeps buzzing. What do you mean by red?
So I mean, as in, like, if you go unlock your phone.
Unlock
your phone. Do you have on your main home screen with all
the little red thingies? Yeah, I have 17,000 unopened emails.
There you go. So this is a great example.
Yeah, 45 Snapchat notifications.
And if you look at my home screen, now. I have, and that's for the camera over there.
It's redless.
Absolutely zero red. And now, like, there's a couple of things here. Like,
emails.
So my recommendation is to turn off the badges for anything apart from absolutely vital things, which are, if people want to contact you, but don't. For social media, turn off the badges for social media, turn off the notifications for social media. So red is a sign of like it's associated with anger and stress, and so why would you want to like have that flashing up at you all the time? So I recommend people turn off their notifications for all of the stuff that they don't need things for. That definitely helps me. The most important thing it helps with is you having control over your time. So instead of you being controlled by other people's agendas, which is them trying to connect with you and them trying to grab your attention, by having all of the badges and notifications off, you are the owner of your time, which again, I come back to this, like, time is your only asset. So don't let other people dictate your time. That's the basic recommendation I'd have. Turn off the badges and notifications and live a more controlled life on your terms.
I like that. I really like that. I haven't actually heard that one before. So I have an older brother myself. He's 4 years older than me.
He's a good lad.
You do know Lucas. Yes. Even though last time you saw
lad.
him, he was dressed as Freddie Mercury.
And so was I.
Oh, yeah. I forgot you guys were married. How can I forget? I can't erase it now. It's back. PTSD. Yeah, I haven't actually seen you since then. Wow. So you know my brother. Do you have siblings, and how has their choices impacted your choices?
Yeah, I have 2 siblings. I have 2 younger siblings, a brother and a sister. And the truth is that what they do and what they have done has no impact on what I do and what I've done. The irony, though, is that if I look at what my siblings have done in their careers, and if you look at the typical eldest sibling and how they're potentially supposed to kind of like lead the way and be the most on it, in my family it's clearly the opposite. I am essentially like the person that has gone away from the traditional path. So both of my siblings are extremely successful in their own right. We all do very different things. I do a little bit more close to what my sister does. She's a marketing director. She's lived in New York for the last 5 years, and she is a very, very capable business person. She studied business at university. My brother is a rocket scientist, so he works.
Wasn't expecting that.
So he works for a rocket manufacturer, manufacturing and designing. He's an engineer for engines and has worked for Airbus. So worked for he's an aerospace engineer. So I yeah, I look at both of them and I'm inspired by both of them. That's purely it. I look at them like probably the ugly runt of the litter.
Lovely.
And I know, but I genuinely, I look at them and I'm like, I'm very, very inspired by my younger siblings.
I was hoping you'd stutter so I could be like, come on, Tom, spit out. It's not rocket science. I was so ready to make that joke.
Bloody hell. God, your dad's been teaching you the dad jokes, hasn't he?
Oh no, these are all for my accord. Dad wishes he could make jokes that good.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of the episode. I have a few final questions for you. If you could sit down with him right now, what advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
I would tell my 16-year-old self to just trust your gut instinct. That's the only thing that I've ever continuously noticed that provides me with the right kind of decision making. So to provide a little bit of context on that, when I have a decision to make, and sometimes, most days I have a lot of decisions to make on business, I always go with my gut feeling. And it's this weird, I don't know how to explain it other than it is this like, the other way I look at it is like, if it feels wrong, then it's the wrong decision. Like, I just have these simple things, and that would be the advice I'd give my 16-year-old self, would be just trust your gut decision, because my gut decision is the reason I'm here sitting with you talking right now. And I've made a ton of mad decisions, but it turns out that they were all the right decisions for me to be sat here with you. And so the way I look at it is like, trust your gut, because like, what is right for your gut is what was right for you, and what is right for you is the only thing that ever matters.
I wholeheartedly agree. What advice would you give someone wanting to make a complete U-turn in their career, just like you did?
Yeah, great question. So I would start with a pros and cons list.
Okay.
Simple. Yeah, no.
I'm a fan of the pros and cons lists.
Yeah, go back to, and this is what I did.
Back to basics.
I sat down with a piece of paper and I wrote 2 columns, pros and cons, and I was like, pros are being a dentist, cons are being a dentist. Mm-hmm. The cons column was about 9 times longer than the pros. So that to me was a big signal that I probably could consider other things.
Yeah.
The next question then is, well, what should I do? And I'll go back to what we spoke about earlier, which is the ikigai, which is determining what your purpose would be based on what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you're skilled at. Mm-hmm. Like, go through that process. So the two-step process of pros and cons list, and then writing out where you could go next and figuring out what your purpose could be.
Yeah. Perfect. Is there anything else you want to add at all? You want to talk about? I'll mold a question around it, or anything you want to add to each section, or?
No, all good.
Got it all out of your system?
Yeah, I love these because they're like therapy sessions. They're amazing.
Well, I've got an hour and 15 minutes of it, so I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I knew it would be a long one.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you haven't already done so, hit the like button down below. Make sure to subscribe so that you can learn from the very best that I'm going to be interviewing at the Summit Club. If you didn't know this already, I also have another podcast called The Unorthodox Podcast that I do with my co-founders, Liam and Mark over at Unorthodox. We're a Web3 marketing consultancy. If you want to go check it out, it's quite a lot of fun. If you want to learn a bit more about crypto and everything Web3, that's the place to come check it out. We interview some of the most interesting people within Web3 and also executives across some of the biggest brands on the planet. Come and join us. The links are also going to be down below in the description, and I'll see you next time.